Hello, welcome to Politricking with myself, Tshidi Madia. This is episode 14 of season 3 of a politics podcast brought to you by Eyewitness News. This week, we focus on the revival of the young lions. The once fierce and ferocious ANC Youth League got a president. This is after 8 years of not electing leadership for the league. This is after almost a decade of task teams. The league hopes to finally move away from that and get back into the swing of things where they can have a vibrant and alive youth league. So we speak to Collin Malatji, Nuku, from my home region, Ekurhuleni, 10th province, has delivered a national leader of the governing party's youth wing. Whether or not, by the way, this will succeed, I don't know. I feel like the ANC Youth League is so caught in trying so hard to be like its mother body when there's so much that is so wrong with the ANC in and of itself. So I don't know. Even this race to become president, Collen, I don't know in terms of my observations of the weekend. I have not slept, barely slept, because, we had to watch the youngsters as they tried to self-determine and fought for their so-called autonomy. They told them, now you have your autonomy. So let's see what they do with that, more so with the elections being around the corner. But before that, the public protector, acting public protector, that is, Advocate Collen, made public the Para report, and she stuck to a script, absolved the president, stuck to a script. Wally Roeder, the head of security, Major General Wally Roeder, is the one who's answerable for something. He and another VIP official, which leads me to my next comment. We saw this video, disturbing video, doing the rounds on social media where men with guns, big men with big guns, were beating up on what looked like youngsters in a polo on the highway. We now understand that those men belong to VIP protection and they're part of the motorcade that serves the deputy president, Paul Mashatile. I don't take issue with Paul Mashatile. I don't think he issued an instruction. I hear the argument that people often feel the VIP protectors very much emulate the leaders that they serve, right? So if you are rush, and you are impatient and you are bullish in your ways, your team is likely to also carry itself in that manner. I hear that. I don't think it boils down to that. I think that there is a breakdown. I think what we saw with that VIP team is quite in line with what we see in our country in so many other areas or sectors, right? A complete breakdown of moral, ethical, ubuntu, decency, all of that jazz. Because how and why would you carry yourself that way? Even if the youngsters were in the wrong, that's not what you ought to do as per the constitution or as per the regulations, really, that oversee policing in our country. And it's funny because this happened on the back of comments by former President Mbeki about the relationship the police have with citizens, that there seems to be a memory lapse in understanding their role, because you're there to protect and serve. We should not be afraid of our policemen. We should not be seeing them with big firearms attacking young people on the side of the highway. Even if those people are trainees, even if those people were in the wrong, there are instruments by law that should be applied in a situation like that. So I found that incredibly disturbing. Sticking with the theme of young people, here is Collin Malatji, caught up with him shortly after he was elected ANC Youth League president. I caught up with him a few days after he was elected ANC Youth League president. So let's listen to some of the things he says, and maybe we'll be able to come back to this podcast at a later stage and hold him to it. Here's that conversation. Fresh of being elected, unopposed, as the new face, the voice, the leader of the ANC Youth League, I'm being joined this week by Collin Malatji, Mabicha Noko as well. Oh, I think Nake, but anyway, yeah. Nuku is joining us in studio. Thank you so much for coming to Prime Media Place. Congratulations. Yeah. How's it been? I imagine it's been a whirlwind. It's been a few days.
Yeah, no, it's been a very busy, hectic week. Interviews everywhere, trying to introduce our ideas to the public, because obviously everyone wants to know what that is young people thinking. Yeah, it has been a very hectic week.
I've always known you'd be ANC Youth League president, and I think in a way that's an indictment. The fact that it was a walk in the park almost from the outside. I've known about you, and I've been saying to people, I've known that Collen was a vision for some as the next ANC Youth League president, well, at least since 2018. 2023, you finally are there, you are there unopposed. I don't know if that's the endorsement one wants after such a long hiatus. It's been 8 years. You've rolled from one task team to another. When you come back in, you come in unopposed. Yet there's a lot of drama. There's a lot happening on the sidelines. What must we make of that?
Look, a process was opened of branches, nomination processes. We've all went out to campaign. Everyone who's a member of the Youth League between the ages of 14 to 35 had an opportunity to campaign. And I got the highest nomination. I got over 1,100 nomination of branches. My contender got around 36. Now, from the beginning, it was going to be very difficult to contest. But also, those who are contesting the second option in plenary, the constitution allows that you are raised from the floor. My contender was raised from the floor. He declined nomination.
But how would it work when he's not allowed in the room? From what we heard as journalists outside is that Apiwe Mkangela was actually not even allowed to participate in that conference. So he had issues with registration along with others from Kasani. Correct? He's from Kasani.
Yes.
So how do you even call it a fair game, a fair contest, when he's not even allowed in the room, to have his name raised within the room and to participate in the conference?
Look, everyone was allowed to come to the conference. There was a registration process. His whole region was audited. It was part of the regions that were expected to be part of the conference. They delayed to register. Some came, some did not come. They were delaying until registration was closed. Is that we ran registration even for over 24 hours, trying to wait for everyone to be accommodated. We do not have a perfect registration system that I can confirm, but everyone was given opportunity to register their candidate and their delegate. Now, you can't be inside conference if you're not registered. You have to go to the registration point, get accredited, then come and participate. But he was allowed to come.
So it's his fault he wasn't in the room?
Yeah, it was, I don't know what informed them, I must still ask him. But everyone was allowed. But he was called during the process. You are allowed to be called, even if you're outside, if you're not even a delegate, to accept or reject nomination. Now, I can give you an example. Even if you bring maybe the whole region, Krisani, there are about 54 branches. Even if you bring the whole region inside conference, it will not make a difference, because you'll need close to 600 hands secondly from the floor. But we don't know about it. It was not tested also, because Apiwe did not accept nomination.
Again, I go back to the drama that we were seeing outside. There were issues around autonomy in the lead up to conference, which I think to a degree Nduma Nana and Fikile Mbalula were tasked with helping you try to address throughout the conference. But a lot of young people felt that this was rigged in your favor, that at every given moment processes were being frustrated, or people with disputes were being frustrated in order to be left outside of the room. Your assessment of those complaints. You saw the letter that some have claimed to be a fake letter. Again, complaining about audit processes, complaining about processes, complaining about the electoral committee that was meant to be overseeing this process.
Let me start from the letter. The letter that was sent with names of young people that
to the steering committee.
The steering committee. It was attended to. While we were still attending, I was part of the steering committee, because remember, before I became president, I was the deputy coordinator of the Youth League.
There are referees and players in these games.
Now,
yes.
I'm the coordinator of those meetings. Now, the letter, when we were about to entertain the letter, calling everyone on board, one of the person's name that was there wrote a letter to say that my signature is forged. This is not me on the letter. Now, it affected the credibility of the whole process. That's why everyone distanced themselves from the letter and said it's fake. Now, I don't want to discuss something that it's classified as fake by those that are seen to be authors of the letter. That was on the letter issue. The issue of the autonomy, we were an ANC task team to take the ANC Youth League conference. Now we have a full autonomy. We have executive powers now, or elected leadership. Now the ANC had to assist us to go to conference, because there were 3 task teams who were not able to take us to conference. But the one that the ANC set up with the support of the ANC organizing and the whole ANC team, were able to go to conference. But it has got nothing to do with the autonomy. It's got more to do with delivering a conference of the Youth League. And it's clear that we have autonomy now. We have a president elected with full executive powers. Now autonomy is back. We took it back at conference.
You don't worry that you won't have the necessary confidence from your peers because you've been delivered. In essence, you've been delivered by the elders. It's not just the work and the efforts of young people in the ANC that got you in the seat.
Where do elders enter when over 2,900 branches, young people, 14 to 35, nominate their own candidate? Where were elders in conference when delegates of the Youth League supported and voted for their own candidates? Now, this of elders is overrated. It's used by people who want to create a credibility issue. For example, I'm not a candidate of elders. I'm known amongst my peers. I've led the Youth League, youth formations my whole life.
That's an interesting one that you say that, because I did speak to a lot of delegates, and a lot of delegates said the issue they actually have with you, they understand that conference is conference and conference politics are what they are. But the issue they raised with you is you didn't come to them. They said, this character who's going to lead us, yes, we're going to endorse Collen, but Collen's never come to us in Limpopo, come to us in the Northwest and sold us his picture. What we understand, or his vision for the league, what we're being sold is a deal that this province must give that one to work with that one to barter in order to have a collective. And that's how we came to Collen will be endorsed as president. It's not the ideas that Collen has. It's not the solutions to what young people are facing in the party and outside of the party that we are buying into at this point in time.
Now that I've made examples of Limpopo and Northwest, let me just give practical examples. I went to address an RGC in Bujanala of the ANC Youth League of Delegates to speak to them. I went to the Peter Mukaba anniversary celebration in Limpopo. I addressed the...
You did those just now?
Yes, I addressed the... I've been doing rallies everywhere, lectures addressing young people. Now, maybe, I don't know which one I'm talking about, but there's no young person in the ANC that doesn't know my ideas. Now they know me. I've run for too long. A lot of people that I've led within the past, I've even aged. They are leaders of the ANC in all corners. There's different generations. The Youth League is an annual organization. Now, every year there are new members who join the Youth League. Now, we are bound to have new members every year that you must interact with. But even if you want to, Tshidi, there's no way you can be able to interact with every young person. Because our membership is over, every branch has got 100 members. Now we've got close to 3,000 branches in South Africa. Now there's no way that if you times 3,000 plus 100, there's no way you can engage everyone.
But they should at least know your ideas.
They know my ideas. I'm shocked that the people say they know my
and
ideas.
the delegates told me they don't. Let's speak about the NYTT. Out of the 40-odd young people who were part and parcel of putting together this conference with the elders, not everybody made the cut. You're looking at about at least 20, I think, that have been shared for different reasons. Some were not even eligible to run. But how do you, again, I'm trying to make sense of how so many young people who helped shape where you are now, who contributed, were not eligible. The lack of confidence in those people who would, if you're trying to rebuild, would have some understanding, because they were part of the NYTT, that's the National Youth Task Team, would have an understanding of what needs to be done in order to build, if you're trying to revive, as opposed to putting in people who are not there, nowhere near the systems, and who might delay even the process of rebuilding. You are facing an election next year.
Being in NYTT doesn't mean that you're automatically qualified to be elected. We're chosen amongst best young people. Now, in the structures we've got the provinces, we've got the regions, that have got a lot of strong leaders that have been elected. Now, the ANC is a democratic organization. Now, you need to get your peers to support you. Now, it doesn't mean in the end it's a guarantee that you must just be elected. Let's not have a conference then. Then let's sit down and say, this NYTT, you are now the leadership. Now, if you want to have a conference, a democratic conference where you must elect leadership, you must be ready that if your peers don't feel that you must lead them moving forward, to elect those that want them to lead.
And you're not worried that those who feel disheartened about the way this conference has turned out will ultimately become your opponents and form some sort of coalition of the wounded? Because I'll explain why I'm asking that question. Let me first ask that. You're not worried about what will happen to the people who feel betrayed and hard done by this conference?
Look, every conference, there will always be people that are not happy.
Casualties.
Yeah, casualties. It's a conference, we all want to be elected. We all believe that we're capable. Then if you're not elected, there are those who called me and said, no, they accept the outcomes. How do you assist? For example, the likes of Julia, I talked to her. She's a very skilled young person. She's good in communication. Now, those are skills that we bring back and say, come, let's work. Let's reinforce the office. Let's find a way of making sure that we take back the Youth League back to basics, because not everyone that was not elected is not good. There are those who are very brilliant, but they were not able to mobilize their peers to support them. But doesn't mean that you must throw them to the dustbin. There's no dustbin for them. You still need their skills. You've got Ekurhuleni, who we built and invested in them in international relations. You still have to find a way of how to use their skills to reinforce what we have in the ANC Youth League. Now, those who want to work, the doors are open for them to come and assist. Those who don't want to work, I don't know what to do with them, but we are open to work with everyone who's going to contribute.
Let's speak about the elections very quickly if I forget. What is in your head in terms of prospects? What you think you'll be able to do for the governing party in Gauteng, where you're from, but also national? We do know that Gauteng, the ANC is holding on by a shoestring.
In Gauteng, we have a very active premier. We must just reinforce his work. He's been creating... Look, the ANC is loved by everyone. The issue is that we must resolve their socio-economic challenges.
We don't trust the ANC. It's not just about socio-economic challenges. Society doesn't trust the ANC.
We've listened to society as the ANC. We've listened. You told us that you don't want to be led by corrupt people who are charged with criminals. We've put them in integrity commission. We've requested them to step aside. It's what we've.
Do you believe those things? Those are what the ANC, the mother body, is selling to the country. As a young person who must hold truth to power to the ANC, you believe when they say to us, we've got an integrity committee, hey, it's going to set people straight. You believe those things.
Tell me one person in the ANC now who's been charged of corruption or any other crime who is on step aside.
Tell me of people in the ANC who have been cited in the Zondo Commission report who are still holding key positions.
But it must first be charged. This is a constitutional democracy. You can't prosecute.
No, but if you say that you're listening to society, Colin, right?
Yes.
If your party says it's listening to society, whose outcry is corruption, any hint...
But are you saying...
Any hint,
what are you saying?
The party must move faster, no?
What are you saying, Sid? Are you saying that the people who are members of the ANC must operate outside the constitution of the country? Is that what you're saying?
No, no one said that you must operate outside of the constitution of the country.
We can't prosecute you before you are charged. You can't say you must step aside before you are charged. It's still a rumor.
Step aside is but one instrument to deal with wayward people.
Yeah, but morally, you see, this is what we call moral. People must have moral will to say that if you don't even have to wait for step aside. If I'm in a Zondo commission, I'm stated, I must go to the court and clear my names and come back. That is a morals that people must use. But
so we don't have that in the governing party.
To enforce it, no, we have it. To enforce it. There are many people who have stepped aside before they even have been charged.
With their own moral conscience, please give me 10.
To enforce it.
For such a large party, give me 10.
To enforce it. To enforce that.
You can't give me 10.
No, but I'm saying to enforce it.
Your 10, eh?
No, no such.
You can't say what's not there. You can't say what doesn't exist.
To enforce this thing, we put the integrity committee to us. People must appear.
You don't even need an integrity committee because you have a disciplinary committee that's empowered by your constitution to take action.
Correct.
Right?
Yes.
And so the reading I have of your integrity committee, it's a way to recycle the elite in the party. So they find a way to come back. You are sanctioned, you are sent away because you've done something wrong. And when the public and society is forgotten, there's a way for you to come back.
There's no way you can come back if you're not clear of your charges.
It is only the likes of Ace Magashule who then are found wanting in terms of ill discipline, in terms of misconduct within the party's rules, who are actually chucked out the door.
Ask you, which person is still in the NEC of the ANC or structure of the ANC who's charged? Maybe you can tell me one person who's charged. Because I want to show you the practical part that there's no such thing. Ace was subject to the same process that everyone was subjected to. Which person? We're implementing our own
people cited in the Zondo Commission. You moved it to a question of morality. You moved it to an issue of morality. Then I said to you, when it comes to morality, though, a lot of people in the ANC are found wanting. In fact, you could say it from the top, from the very top with the president of the party.
It's a moral issue. That one.
So the ANC is plagued by a moral issue. So an ANC that's plagued by a moral issue then wanted to present itself before society, saying, give us one more chance.
Yeah, but they don't have a moral issue. They don't have a moral issue. We're enforcing our own decisions. We have made people to step aside who are charged of corruption. They must go and clean themselves and come back to the party very clean.
I think society would absolutely disagree. The issue of young people again, who has been eating away at most of the young in the country? Those who do vote. Most are apathetic, absolutely. But there is a small fraction that does vote. When you do an analysis of where they're going, what is the picture that you are seeing?
Look, my analysis is that the youth that has been eaten away from the ANC, the DA takes the ones who are in the multiracial areas, the EFF takes the ones in the townships, when they don't have a voice that represents them. Now, that's how our youth vote is divided if they doesn't go to the ANC. Now, those are the two parties that eat our youth from the ANC.
And with regards to the picture at universities, do you have a plan or do you stay away? I do know, I remember seeing in the discussion documents that obviously that's a terrain for SASCO,
Yes.
but do you have a plan to go and reinforce and assist or try and
Yes.
get more people to align with your party?
Yes, we'll be camping in universities because that's where you get a lot of youth that have got a lot of influence. Now we'll be assisting SASCO to build strong structures there. We've been winning a lot of universities, even under difficult conditions. We've won vet universities, the most difficult contested universities.
It's always a cycle. It's you guys this year,
Yeah.
EFF next year, you guys this year, so yeah.
It's a work in progress. I don't want to talk about other political parties, but there have not been any organizations that have been more organized than progressive youth alliance structures. Other parties have been trying to formulate youth student organizations, but they have not been able to be structured the way they are. We've always been removed out of power universities because of our conduct sometimes, of our deployees in the SRCs. Not because people have a problem with SASCO, but SASCO has got back to school campaign. Every year, SASCO assists students to register universities. Their first contact when they get to universities and challenges, they go to SASCO. We do that very well. The only problem that we do sometimes, we tend to deploy wrong people into SRC positions, then they forget to service the student community. Then we're punished in the next elections because of our own deployees.
That's exactly like your mother body, isn't it?
We'll remove all deployees in the mother board. We're not doing what we're supposed to do.
In the mother body?
Yes.
We can't not touch on this. Are you a Fikile Mbalula Project 2027 vision? Are you part? No, let me rephrase that question. Let me rephrase that. Are you Project 2027 for Fikile Mbalula? I saw your media briefing this week. I know you attempted to answer it, but you can't shake that off because his peers speak about it. Do you feel it's fair that you're labeled as Project 2027 for the Secretary General of the ANC?
It's unfair because I ran my campaign for president way before those projects. I supported Mbalo to be Secretary General of the Youth League, of the ANC, because he's a former president of the ANC Youth League, he's a former SG of the ANC Youth League, and I believe the right person, the right energy to run that office, and I was proven right. You know, since back...
it's too soon. You're proven right.
I was proven right. It's in a period of 6 months.
As the right person?
Yeah.
In 6 months?
Yeah, it's in a period of 6 months.
Okay,
Let me
Colin.
give you examples.
We'll have this conversation in a few years' time. Continue.
Within a period of 6 months, you met all structures of the Youth League and the ANC Alliance. The Youth League has gone to conference. The Women's League is going to conference. Sanko no longer has parallels. I'm saying that's how you assess as a full-time official SG who's responsible to put structures together. The Veterans League are going to conference. COSA's parallels are resolved. SASCO parallels are getting resolved. Now, is that not a working SG? He is. But the 2027 project, I don't know about it. No one has ever lobbied me about it. We are fresh from conference. This man is still in office. He's got 6 months in office. The section debate is not open. And I think if he's doing that, it will be wrong. Or if the people are lobbying for him for that, it will be wrong because he will be dividing the organization at early stages. As an SG, he can't allow anyone to use his name to open a succession debate that is not yet open.
I don't want to call it an obsession. But the issue around Julius Malema didn't just come up from questions in the media briefing. In fact, one felt the spirits of Malema at the conference. If you listen to the political report, his name came up quite a bit. You listen to the Secretary General's report, his name or his party came up a bit. You were asked questions and you spoke in a particular manner. Is there an obsession? Is it fair to say there's an obsession? Because I have a view that it feels like the Youth League can't move beyond Malema. And surely, this many years after he's been booted out of the NC, he should be a non-factor. Yet he remains a factor.
The Youth League must move on from Malema. It would be wrong that we even discuss him. I don't want to dismiss the question yesterday because it was an important question. The question was asked that because we're pushing for economic transformation, and they were saying that Julius Malema was removed out of the ANC because of that. Then I had to clarify that. No, that's not true. Because the Package for Economic Freedom was a resolution of the Youth League 2011 conference. Julius was removed out of the ANC for ill-discipline and trying to create a cult out of the organization. And the press briefing was not about Julius. And that's why I'm trying to move away from talking about Julius because it's not about Julius, it's about the program that we want to do to resolve all socio-economic challenges of young people. Now, it's wrong for the Youth League to be still dragged into Julius things 10 years later. We need to move on. And I can see there's a narrative built, Tshidi, that there's a comparison of me and Julius. Julius is the leader of a political party. I'm a leader of a league of the ANC. The ANC is a political party. Now, the comparison is unfair because Julius is a former president of the Youth League. Yes, I'm a current president of the Youth League. Julius is a former president of COSAS. I'm a former president of COSAS. We've got a similar credentials. I know what brings people in that thing. Is we want to compare, we're from the same school of thought, of training, but are two different people. I led student organizations. I went to SASCO also. Julius has never went to SASCO. He only went to university when he was old. I grew up in structures properly. But it's not about him. He's running his own party. I'm running an organization. If there are issues that unite us on resolving issues of young people in South Africa, we'll agree on all of those issues. But it's two different political parties.
So different lanes. You play in your lane, they must stay in their own.
Yes.
There's this thing about language where it's almost that there is no other way. It almost seems as if there's no other way to speak to young people but to posture as militant, right? Are you cosplaying militancy? What do you understand about the way that you are? Because people are like, oh, he's trying too hard to be militant. In your head, as you communicate with young people, even with the media, through the media to young people, how do you think you're being perceived?
I don't think I'm perceived as militant. I think I've got a command character. I've always had it. It's not a militant character. How I speak, I'm like that. It's my personality. It's got nothing to do with the posture of trying to be militant. Militancy is important there and there on issues that affect the youth. The voice must come out strong.
Your authority.
Yeah, you can't want to address.
Assertiveness.
Yeah, you can't want to address important issues of the youth, and there's no assertiveness. It means the next person who must deliver all the things that you need to deliver will not be able to listen to you properly, because it's like you're joking when you're raising important issues. They must know that these are serious matters that you're raising, and assertiveness is very important when you deal with such matters.
Can the league not be led by anybody else? Does assertive have to be like this? Because when you say you've got a command character, I'm going to take you back to Julius for 2 seconds. It's very much along the lines of what Julius is. It's very much along the lines of what Mbalula is. Can the youth league not be captured, the imagination of young people, be captured by anything other than that?
Maybe it's a personality issue. But if you can check, in my age, you've got different personalities on how we address issues and how we address issues, and the deputy president. And it's a combination of...
We're still yet to see you. You're fresh out the box.
Yeah, it's a combination.
That's not one.
I don't think I'm too fresh, but it's a combination of...
on this field, at national level,
it's a combination
of
different characters. Now, you can't want to force me to change who I am because Julius is like that, Mbalula is like that. That will be unfair. You will not be getting to know who's Collen now. It means I must pretend to be something. I must rehearse before I come to you, even change the language and how I move. It will be wrong. I'll be selling you a wrong product.
I want to move on now. The Youth League being given back its autonomy. In my head, I feel it will not be that you've been given free reign. I think you'll still be kept on a leash somewhat. They'll try not to make it tight, but definitely they'll tug as soon as possible when they feel that you're agitating a little bit beyond their comfort zone, if I may. What is your sense about what you expect? And this came to me when I was watching Cyril Ramaphosa, the ANC president, as he spoke about autonomy. And then I thought, oh, goodness, he was, of course, the last line in that 2012 appeals committee. What do you understand about the freedoms that you will have and what you'll be able to do to push the governing party towards resolving issues facing young people in the country?
The autonomy of the ANC is very clear. We have a right to make our own decisions. We have a right to put in policy positions as long as they're not outside the policy positions of the ANC. We're guided by the constitution of the Youth League and of the ANC. We're not an independent organization. We're a league of the ANC. But we're allowed to, the ANC, we always influence. We have platforms in the ANC to influence that. We've got an NEC, which I sit in now. We've got policy conferences. We've got NGCs. We've got conferences. Youth League have got delegation, voting delegation to influence policy positions.
You're a bloc. That's why they're saying you figure this project.
Now we can't move away from that. Now, it will be wrong for the Youth League to say, it must move away from the constitution of the ANC. We're not a league of the ANC. We're not a youth league. We're an ANC youth league.
How do you want to use the access that you have as leader of the Youth League? What would you want to do with that access? You've got areas of where you can influence direction. What's your vision?
Look, the most important thing is to restructure the economy to benefit the majority. I think that is what I want to be known for, and I wanted to do practically. In our policy documents, we're speaking about utilizing, minimizing on exporting of raw materials. We've even put a percentage. We said not more than 75% of our raw materials must leave the country. We must use them to revive our secondary sectors, because if you can look at Chimistin, for example, it used to be the industrial hub of Africa in the world. It has collapsed. It's becoming a ghost town now. Revive that. We must be self-serving. We must put our country first and put others first. Our resources can be used to revive other industries and create opportunities for our youths of Europe and other countries, while where they are from, there's still a high level of unemployment. And I think those are the solutions that are low-hanging.
The conversation, though, in essence, is of beneficiation.
Yes.
It's been a conversation that's been with us for many, many, many years.
Correct.
So what would you do differently from what we have?
We need, look, there is no
in
one.
pushing your own party, mind you, because the people who speak of beneficiation are also there in the ANC.
Let me give you a practical example. If the ANC does not resolve the beneficiation issue, the ANC will be taken out of power tomorrow. There
are many issues, though. There are many issues that if the ANC doesn't resolve, the ANC is out of power.
The ticking bomb,
ASAP, and yet it's still there.
of high level of unemployment of youth. That thing, if it is not resolved, the ANC will be taken out of power because young people are now becoming desperate. They want a solution to solve their own problems because they're tired of becoming forces of poverty. Now, there's no one in the ANC now who can say we must not resolve the beneficiation issue.
Why is the ANC not listening to that message? Young people, that's a ticking time bomb, unemployment. The ANC itself repeats that message over and over and over again, yet we are not moving nearly fast enough to resolve it. Why?
Part of the reasons we've put the second DSG, it is to put the monitoring systems of tracking administrative in government, private sector, and research unit. We are going to be making sure and we monitor that all our resolutions are implemented because the ANC has got good resolutions. The biggest problem is lack of implementation. Now, the reason of that is to track if our resolutions are implemented by deployees in government, if the private sector is disciplined enough to resolve all our socio-economic problems. Because another problem I'm faced with is that we're not able to discipline capital for a long time. Everything is pushed to government, while they're the biggest partners to assist to resolve our problems.
I'm almost done, but I want to speak more about how you have a task of rallying the youth outside of your party towards giving the ANC another chance. But really, you have a task of making ANC's own young people want to believe in the league and join the league. How do you see that happening?
It's a lot of work. You need to build structures. You know, what we miss is that the biggest problem is when you have weak branches, because those are basic units. Those are people that interact with people on a day-to-day basis. Those are community structures. Now we need to strengthen them to make sure that they're able to respond to all problems in the communities so that they become a nerve to national. Because at the national level, you're totally dependent on the information you get from the ground. But if the ground is not fertile or you don't have a good structure units at the branch level, you run a risk of not knowing how to resolve problems that are faced by your people.
How much time do you give yourself for this? Because we're going to elections. I think the ANC itself has noted that there is a vacuum in terms of having a face to lead the programs of young people versus opposition parties that have got younger leaders. How much time do you have? The ANC is facing a real threat with elections around the corner.
We don't have much time because the ANC has communicated that from the 31st of July to August, we must all focus on elections. That's why it's urgent that I must be in Toulouse every day because we must be central as the Youth League in those elections because the last elections were not there. The Women's League was the only one that is running. The Youth League was defocused. Now we need the youth vote. The ANC lost a lot of youth vote in the last elections. This time around, we need to marshal everyone behind the pen of the African National Congress.
Before I even ask you what that looks like, you need to be at Luthuli House as soon as possible. You remain a member of parliament. Do you know when you'll give up your seat in parliament?
Look, we're ready, maybe after the first NEC. We're waiting for the ANC to say.
So that's like in a week or so?
Yes, I'm deployed by the ANC in parliament, not by the Youth League. Now, the party discipline, you don't just release yourself. You first request, they tell you when you can leave. Go NCC, you don't just come in and out.
I'm laughing because I'm going to find a day where I remind you about party discipline when you don't show it. But okay,
there's a discipline. You don't just come in and out. It's not a sponsor shop. It's an old organization. It's an over 100 years organization. Now, there are how things are done in the movement. I don't just release myself. I have long because they know that I'm ready. When I contested the president, I knew I want to be in Toulouse full time to assist the movement. And use all my pegs in parliament because there's no money in Toulouse, as you say.
There's no money in parliament either. So many parliamentarians are always complaining. I get about you guys don't get paid enough of our money.
Yeah, but the reality is that Toulouse is worse because there's no pension, there's nothing there. They were voluntarily going to assist the organization to grow.
Let's speak about the youth of the country. You spoke about how unemployment is a thing. That's just one issue that's facing the youth. But for the most part, they really are not interested in politics anymore. They cannot find themselves being able to relate to people in politics. In fact, when your name comes up, people say, Kichi's poem was that guy. And they don't feel that they could relate to you. They really feel you are part and parcel of the elite and nothing more. How do you make yourself relatable to young South Africans who are actually really, truly struggling and fast losing hope?
Look, after our NEC, we'll have stakeholder engagements with churches, with youth in sports, youth in business, youth in the financial sector, young people in the media space, so that we get the ideas and combine them to be ours. Now, we'll be more accessible to all young people. We'll create a desk to create all problems, to resolve all problems of the youth. Now, the most important thing, I don't think is the issue of, obviously, being a member of parliament, Tshidi, puts me in a position of privilege. I can't come here and say I'm the same as a child in Tembisa or Katlehong who's unemployed. Yeah. Obviously, that alone, I have a salary, I have pegs, I've got flights. That alone puts me in a position of privilege. And I have a problem with people who want to refuse that. Those deployments come with benefits. They do. And if you're not careful, they have a potential of making you be detached from the ordinary youth because you have access to things they don't have access to. And sometimes if you become too comfortable, you tend to forget them. Because the confidence created with the peg that comes with things, you are likely to forget those that are on the ground. That's why a president of the Youth League must be full-time in office, so that every day deals with all of these issues.
But also being a president of the Youth League comes with its trappings. We've seen it before. Where presidents of the Youth League, when people do a salary comparison, their lives are nowhere near what they supposedly get month to month. How do we hold you to that? How do we check you as Collin Malatji? Because I get now the big deal that you're making is that you're giving up perks. So we'll look at you and hold you to it. How do you expect us to do that?
Look, we can't expect the president of the Youth League not to have protection, number one. You can't expect the president of the Youth League not to be a social being. I'm a young person. You know, there's this perception that when you're president of the Youth League, you must behave old. If there's certain things I must do, I must not want things that young people want. I'm going to want all of those things. That's a reality. And I don't want to, that's why I want to present myself as such. I don't want to present myself as someone who's a communist, who's sitting in a corner somewhere, doesn't have shoes, or, you know what, others like to present themselves as such. Say, hey, me now, I'm very poor, like others from other political parties, how do you used to present themselves? I don't have anything. But
you're not going to be wearing domestic uniform, that's what you're saying.
You know, I'm not going to do those things. I'm going to lie to society to say that there's nothing that comes with being president of the Youth League. But those things must be known. You know, I'm not going to be scared, Tshidi, to go to a club here in Sandton and socialize with young people because I'm scared I'll be seen drinking with other young people. No, I can't do that. I'm going to be a president who's accessible to young people, who will behave like other ordinary young people. Now, if you hear a story that no, they saw Collen in a club, you must know he said it.
Yeah, those things it's his thing, He goes to the clubs.
I'm not presenting myself to society as something that I'm not. I go to, they know me, those that know me, they'll tell you, even though now I was an MP, in the townships, when there's festivals, I'm there with other young people. I socialize with them. I'm always with them.
It's okay, I accept it. Orata groove. I take it.
Fine.
Tell me very quickly, 50% representation that you guys want to see. You are headed towards a list conference in the ANC. What does that look like? Because, no, let me not even put a caveat. What does that look like for you?
Look, you can't say you want to influence the corridors of power, but you all you do is sloganeering outside. If I put 50% of MPs, 50% of MPLs, it makes me the most powerful president because I can influence legislative directions of the country. Now, there's no president of the Youth League that wants to do that. I want to go and make pronouncement into the House. Tomorrow morning is implemented as a law in this country. That's what I want. Now, young people must be in corridors of power.
What do they look like? Does this include the former youth leaguers? Because sometimes in the ANC, you're told 50-year-old somebody is young and vibrant. By definition, what is that for you? The 50%?
We're not going to thumb them. There's 50% for those of below 35. Not 35 and below, because we must build them with experience. I've learned a lot from Parliament. I think every young person must be exposed and get the same exposure I got. Then there's generations. Look at the NEC of the Youth League. The NEC of the ANC now is led by a generation of youth leaguers. They'll be protected themselves in that. It means now we will be reinforcing them. We're not going to erase them, we are reinforcing them with their experience so that we advance our agenda together.
I actually made a similar argument that you need to look at the ANC's NEC to understand what's possible.
Yes.
Colin, thank you for your time. We wish you well. Who are you not satisfied with in terms of performance in the ANC at the moment? The ANC has ministers, it's got MECs, it's got premiers. When you look at the current cohort of leaders? Who are you not satisfied with? Who could do better, or who should be replaced?
I don't want to make that comment before we do the assessment. The DSG will do an assessment of all the departments. We'll receive a report so that I don't make it out of
As Colin,
assumption.
who are you concerned about?
No, I'm not concerned about anyone.
Thank you, Colin. Thank you for your time. Good luck. The elections are around the corner. I imagine the task is a mammoth one to get young people to rally behind the ANC. That's it from us. A special thank you to Lerato Herfela, Duduzile Masuku, and Tidiso Twala. For Eyewitness News, my name is Tshidi Madia.